Confidence is not something that you just see and you're like, that person's confident. Confident is something that shows up when you need it most, when it's most inconvenient, when things are stacked against you. It's easy to do the right thing when things are going your way. But when things go against the way that you anticipated them, do you show confidence in yourself to take action, to continue to kind of take a step forward throughout that process? That's really what confidence is. If there's not enough confidence to navigate this, how do we build that confidence? Just like a muscle, hello and welcome back to the Connected Mindset Live. I'm your host, Greg Tomchick. Another beautiful Friday to be with you guys. Today we're going to have a special episode. Episode 50 was just surpassed. That's a special milestone. Most of you know, if you've listened to any episodes up to this point, why we started this show, because we felt like we were disconnected from the world around us at some of the hardest points in our lives. And we know that they're going to come again, and we're going to have the lessons, the community to lean on through these shows and through these discussions. 50 is so important because when I was a baseball player, we always had milestones like 25 wins got you over 500, which would get you into the playoffs. So we always had some type of milestone. 50 is a really big one for me. 50 episodes, 50 discussions, way more than 50 breakthroughs. That we're going to talk about some of those breakthroughs today. We've been able to have 50 different guests from all walks of life and ask them what connection means to them. I think that's such a profound question, but because we were able to have some commonalities, some threads across each of the shows, I always found it fascinating when I'm connecting to that next version of myself or trying to level up in some way. It really helps to kind of take a pause point. It's not necessarily a full reset, but a pause point to think about all of the great lessons that you've learned up to that point. You can kind of recognize them and then kind of take that next step with confidence, because you know everything you've learned up to this point is going to set you up in order to learn that next lesson that gets you, further along. But it's important to take those pause points. Some people say to zoom out, and this episode is going to be a little bit of a zoom out for you guys. If you haven't been able to check out the previous episodes that we're going to discuss, they'll all be in the show notes. But this will be kind of a distillation. One of my favorite things to do in life, one of the things that I've developed as one of my superpowers, is being able to have discussions and do these zoom out moments and distill down information that I feel is absolutely helpful for me and would be for my past self, but hopefully you're able to take some away and benefit from really this special episode 51. So one of the things that we've been recently hearing about the show, and I'm not going to bore you guys with the details of how we're upgrading, but we're getting a lot of upgrades. We're building a team around the show. We're going to get better production, better microphones, a better setup. We're going to start having people in person. I mentioned that a few times. We have done that in past episodes, but we want to make it more consistent to bring people together. One of the points of feedback that we got from one of our in-person episodes is I feel more connected than I ever have before because of the discussion that was taking place. And they're always looking at, virtual meetings. Obviously, we can relay thoughts in this way, but when you can see two people interacting and kind of feeding off of each other's energy when it comes to performance or a podcast like this one, I think it just changes the game, and it will allow our team to better connect with guests and be able to treat them to either our local area or the area we decide to meet in. So all of that is huge in connection. We had somebody say, I feel more connected than ever before. That's why we put on these episodes, and hopefully after these 8 lessons, you'll feel a little bit more connected to the world, with the world around you. So without further ado, let's dive in. So episode 50 was an extremely special one. We had Kate McKay, who's a high performance coach and just an overall incredible human being with a great perspective. One that really elevated me over the past week or two, and I'll continue to study her material to be able to continue to to learn all the great lessons that she departs on the world and all the positive impacts she has. She talks a lot about self work versus social work. We feel like we as service minded people either have to be serving others or kind of doing the self work to heal, whether it's past trauma, whether it's something you're going through right now, or something you feel like you're going to go through and have anxiety about. She talks a lot about this balance between healing and serving, and we can do both. Sometimes we feel like we have to go into monk mode, many of you have heard about, and kind of seclude ourselves from the world. And not saying that's a negative thing to do, you just don't want to be there too long. And sometimes we feel like we have to either do the healing work and then serve others, or to serve others, as opposed to doing those in the blend that makes sense for your integrated life. It's your life is so connected internally and externally. There's not really much balance. It's kind of a push and pull, give and take. So if we can think about healing and serving and kind of bouncing back between those, then we can optimize while we serve. And then when we serve, we learn the lessons, and then we come back and heal and optimize and kind of have those important moments, those zoom out, those reset moments, which we'll talk about a little bit here in Connected Lesson 3 with Penny Zenker, who's a focusologist. She talks a lot about those small resets. Connected Lesson 2, John Malura, who's a former NASA scientist, realized that he was getting all these accolades, but the accolades aren't what he wanted. It didn't make him feel fulfilled. He didn't really have confidence in himself at the time. He felt confident, but he had that imposter syndrome, like, I'm chasing this next flag officer or this next role or this next project. And, where is this all going? Why am I doing this? Why don't I feel confident and fulfilled? And he's able to coach incredible individuals today with that experience. He always talks about confidence is not something that you just see and you're like, that person's confident. Confident is something that shows up when you need it most, when it's most inconvenient, when things are stacked against you. That is when you show if you actually have confidence deep down. It's easy to do the right thing when things are going your way, but when things go against the way that you anticipated them, do you show confidence in yourself to take action, to continue to kind of take a step forward throughout that process? That's really what confidence is. And he teaches that by putting people through different exercises and helping them work through the difficulties they're going through in their life, and kind of bouncing back to this, what are we doing this for? And if there's not enough confidence to navigate this, how do we build that confidence, just like a muscle, to be able to push through whatever that individual or individuals are going through? So incredible guy. We'll definitely have him on the show again in the future. He's got some great things coming out, and really excited for where he's headed. Nick Heider. So Nick Heider was a former baseball player as well. He was a catcher. So I was a pitcher. He was a catcher. So there's kind of a unique connection between a pitcher who consistently, is spending time and throwing to a catcher. And catchers and pitchers kind of look at the strategy side of things, and some of the brain structures are similar between pitchers and catchers, because they're the only two positions that are in really every play, if you think about it. So you got to kind of have a fast twitch thought process, but be able to act quickly as well. And you see that a lot when they go into the business world. He's been able to create a number of incredible businesses, and it was an incredible conversation. I definitely recommend that you check it out. He talks a lot about being in a position to receive, and obviously, as a baseball player, maybe you're a shortstop or you're in the outfield. You always want to be in a position to set yourself up for success. And I think sometimes in life, I know I've done this. I've been in a position to not receive because I was, in my own head, or I was overthinking. So I wasn't really in a position to receive what I thought or what I knew I needed in that moment. And that was critical for me when he mentioned that, because I never thought about the relations there. If I'm not putting off the energy and the output to receive what I want first, as opposed to thinking it's just going to come to me, I'm setting myself up for failure. None of us want to do that. He also talked about an interesting topic that I heard a lot when I was going through the ranks of baseball, is you don't get called up to the big leagues until you act like a big leaguer. And I think all of us can take this into some area of our life. If you want to be that manager, or you want to get that promotion, or you want to start that business, you need to start acting like you're already in that position. I think that's so important. It has been for me. I knew when I started my company and I wanted to be, a CEO with a team around me and the ability to serve the clients that I felt like, the customers that I felt like needed us most. And when you first start a company, you try to serve everybody, because you're trying to get the company off the ground. You're establishing product market fit, and does the service I'm offering really, is it needed in the market? And for a service like ours, it didn't feel like that at first. But what we're really able to do is eventually come back to this principle that we're talking about right now, which is, you don't become that 5-person team with great experts if you don't put yourself in that position to receive that. So I think that's such an important piece. If whatever you're going through, whatever you want to accomplish, start to put yourself in there, at least mentally, in that position. What would that person do daily? What would that person do in this situation? Would they let that person at work disrespect them? Whatever that may be, you have to put yourself in that position. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this. There's a lot of research on this. Your reticular activating system. There's all types of scientific terms out there about it. But at the end of the day, you have to know what you want to some extent, and then put yourself in that mindset, in that position, doing those habits of that type of person. And it's going to come that much quicker. You're going to be pretty amazed at the results. And Nick Heider really hit on that nail on the head. So that was a fascinating discussion. Definitely check that out. It was a great production there. Penny Zenker. So Penny Zenker is a focusologist, and she's taken a two very interesting angles of high performance and kind of executive focus, and then kind of the mental fortitude side of how do I make sure that the psychology of all of this really meets. And I think that's a key point missing a lot of the times when people talk about high performance and focus, is what does that actually look like, and how do you make it actionable? And she talks a lot about these small resets that really help you refocus your lens. We start looking at things either too macro or too micro, and it's hard for us to kind of get in the middle, do a reset, and kind of refocus our lens. I almost think about on a camera, sometimes when you have it going, and the background moves, you have to kind of refocus it in. It's kind of the same thing as Penny Zenker said, doing smaller moment to moment resets. So I know in my life, I've waited to reset until something blew up. And I talk a lot about that from a standpoint of, I would wait for those big moments, the losing a sibling, or the divorce, or the business failing. And then I'd finally reset, and then I get all of this clarity, and then I'd find myself in that same position, months, years later, because I never really took the time to reflect, to zoom out, and then to be able to kind of hit that reset moment, refocus, and then keep taking action, and then take those lessons learned. So those smaller resets, ever since I had that discussion with Penny, it's very impactful for me, just to kind of consciously do it. I feel like I do it on the mound when I was in between pitches, and I felt like I threw, 2 pitches and it didn't feel good. I would have that kind of mental reset. So I really resonated with the way she mentioned, doing those smaller resets, and it really helps you move more swiftly and allows you to take action quicker, as opposed to having to be in those big resets for a long period of time. We want to get way out of those once we're in them, but we do need to process. We can't just push it down and depress it to a point where it doesn't exist. So you have to recognize it. Those smaller resets really help. Penny hit that nail on the head. So Jim Carter, AI expert. A lot of people are talking about AI right now with ChatGPT, but a lot of people are not talking about what does it mean to the individual's mindset that's using it. We talk a lot about the connected mindset, and in my past lives in the technology world, starting companies, failing, different companies, as a professional baseball player, as a military-born kid, I've kind of seen all of these different dynamics at play, and I've always been fascinated by connections. So when some people think of connections, they think connections to people. Some people think about them connections to the internet, connections to possessions. But I've always looked at connected a little bit different because some people kind of look at their superpower and maybe they see math equations or they can solve things really quick or they just have the intuition. For me, I've always thought of my superpower, and other people helped me contextualize this, is I see connections of different things, how connected we are as people, how connected this company is, and maybe they don't think they're as connected digitally. So I've been able to kind of take that superpower into the technology and cybersecurity space, and then through this show to be able to connect concepts, ideas, lessons that help us all do those types of breakthroughs in the technology space. But technology is not for everybody, and that's not what the connected mindset is all about. This is me trying to really use my superpower for your benefit. It's a huge benefit to me because I get to interact with you guys. I get to have incredible guests on this show. But ultimately, that's what I really enjoy, is seeing those connections, making those connections, and then helping others make those connections within themselves. And Jim talks a lot about kind of AI and how that is helping a lot of people make those connections through these AI tools, Chat GPT, because it eliminates, we talk a lot about choice. So you have to choose to take an action to have a mindset. That's where it all starts. Choice is really number one when it comes to forward momentum. And Jim talks a lot about, up to this point, we've had this paradox of choice, right? You're talking to three different mentors, you're talking to a bunch of different family members, and you have to make a choice based off of those options. What Jim was mentioning is these AI tools, for a lot of people, like Google did, is minimizing that paradox of choice. So it's, you can type into Chat GPT, I have these three inputs to the business strategy, or how I want to react when my kid does this. People are getting to these levels of these tools, and what it'll say is, here is what we found is the best answer based off of all the situations that we've crunched. And obviously we don't want to outsource our brain, but what he's saying is that, especially from a business standpoint, the personal side is growing. I wouldn't recommend just throwing all of your personal obstacles on there, and then um, I'd recommend bouncing that off a human being. But some people do, and that's fine. You use it how you feel is productive for your life. um, but he talks about it giving you the best choice. And do you trust that choice? We're going to talk about trust here a little bit in a few lessons. But do you trust it by default, if it gives you that answer, because it makes it easy as opposed to you having to exhaust the mental energy? So we have to find ways to navigate this. But he really mentioned that these tools are actually helping people better connect with the world around them, and that's what this show's all about. So he was able to kind of bring that into focus and get to the root of why AI is changing culture and society, as opposed to it's changing it, it's going to take everything over, it's going to steal jobs. A lot of people, when they look at these tools, because there's uncertainty and fear, they put it in a negative light. But there's so many positives to it. You just have to find out what is most constructive and productive specifically for you. So that was an incredible episode with Jim Carter. Brian Walsh. Brian Walsh is a individual in Alaska who I met through one of the groups that I'm in. Just an incredible guy. He talks a lot about upgrading, upward mobility, kind of upgrading that where you are, whether it's in your life or in your business. He helps managers get from management to leadership, which is a huge pivot. I know it was for me, to kind of go from managing people to having to lead a team, make the decisions, and be able to get feedback, have productive conversations. And he talks a lot about getting the answers from the outside world. So obviously you want to do some type of data gathering, consensus, to the ones, people you care about, people you trust, and your different loved ones, to get information to be able to reconsider how you thought about it. But maybe it's a big business decision, or you're about to buy a new car, or you're going to get a new house. I think it's good to get outside perspective, But at the same time, you have to take that outside kind of input into you and kind of use your self-discovery engine, as I've referenced it, where you have to kind of take it back to your truth and what feels right for you and then take action. Some people are just getting answers from the outside world, like I talked about AI, and then just using that and immediately taking action, as opposed to getting that answer, letting it sit with you for a moment, see how it feels, and then be able to take the action that feels best for you. And that's kind of that, authentic action that goes back to the healing and serving. A lot of people think about authentic action as just that process of taking outside input, going through that self-discovery engine to make sure it's right for you, and then putting it out into the world. That's really at its core, that is what people consider authentic action, which I know how it feels to have unauthentic action, and authentic action feels much better, in my opinion, and we've talked a lot about that in this show. The next lesson actually combines two guests. One of the key words that came from all of the episodes, all the 50 episodes we've done up to this point, the main word that was mentioned the most frequently was clarity. And we had two guests on the show, Star Cashman and Jalisha Gatling. Jalisha is a local here in Virginia Beach, and Star, it was a is a cyber lawyer, but she had some incredible perspectives when it came to connection. They both talked about, in order to have clarity from both sides of a dynamic, whether it's a speaker to an audience, whether it's a one-to-one relationship, whether it's a one-to-many where you're, you know, networking and in a big room, meeting people in the middle is what creates clarity. I found that so fascinating because I always knew the concept of meeting people in the middle, right? You want to meet people where they are. You want to, ask questions that allow them to express what they enjoy so that you can connect to them, and kind of be able to find a middle ground. My teacher used to say that a lot. When you're in a discussion, find a middle ground with your classmates or things of that nature. And I always knew what that meant, but I never knew necessarily what the output of meeting people in the middle. Obviously, it felt really good to me when I was able to meet people in the middle and not like step on their toes and be like the loud person that made them feel uncomfortable or unsafe. I always wanted to be the person that, stepped up to a discussion and was able to bring just as much value as they're bringing to me. So it's kind of that exchange, that leaves both people better off. It's like cleaning your room as a kid. Always leave things better off than you found it. That's what has been a key lesson for me throughout baseball, throughout business. And I feel like this concept of meeting people in the middle that Star and Jaleisha mentioned results in clarity. They both said it, and it was so fascinating to hear them both say it. It was like it was a big connected moment for me, and it really kind of it sparked something in my mind and unlocked something, which is just incredible. That's what these connected lessons are all about. Hopefully, as we've gone through these, you've been able to resonate with at least something that's given you that, here's the next action I can take, or here's the next thing I can learn, or next thing I can read, in order to develop this lesson, this skill, to its next level. So that's why we're putting on this episode. We're going to round things out with Mr. Fred Joyle. Fred has done some incredible things, in business and life. Just a great guy. Talks a lot about boldness. And for me, boldness was defined as something different than Fred brought to the table, which was a huge breakthrough for me. We talked a lot about, 50 connected leaders, 50 breakthroughs. We've had, hundreds, thousands of breakthroughs. We've documented a lot of those, and we're going to share those in small snippets, through our YouTube channel over time. But really, what Fred talks about is speaking up and then taking action. It's very hard to do that, but it takes boldness. And in order to get to that place where you feel like you're not debilitated to speak up and to take action when things are really hard, that's the boldness preparation that you have to do. You have to exercise boldness through the small things, introducing yourself to somebody at a coffee shop, walking up to, somebody in a store that dropped something and helping them pick it up. And introducing yourself, or just be doing things that kind of just get you a little bit out of your comfort zone. If you just do a lot of those over time, you exercise that boldness muscle. I know I've been more conscious about that, past 3, 4 years, because I saw the most happy people were the ones that were able to connect with people more, whether it was just asking a waiter or waitress, how's your day going? Anything, anything on your mind that, you feel is relevant to what's going on in the world today. Like just asking them questions that help you show that they are seen and they're recognized. It goes such a long way. And I know I've had incredible conversations, incredible connections with, chefs, managers of places, being able to go talk to executives at sporting events. Just these events when you treat people with boldness, and then they, reflect boldness back on you when it comes to our ability to inspire each other, lift each other up, support each other through the journey we all know we're going through. We're so connected, each and every one of us in some way, but a lot of times we only look at the outside shell. Do you have brown hair? Do you, wear black shirts or white shirts? We look at all these kind of different attributes, as opposed to once we have a discussion and we walk away and we're like, wow, we never knew that we were cousins, or we knew the same people growing up, and we grew up the same way you did. But a lot of times we don't have the boldness to ask those questions, to go out of our comfort zone a little bit, to kind of just give a little window into who we are, and it just allows the other person to learn, create value, bring value, extract value from that exchange. And that's what really the connected mindset's all about. And boldness is at the core of making sure that you can continue to build, continue to grow your connected mindset, your ability to connect with the world around you. That wraps up episode 51, the art of truly connecting. I think when somebody asks me, what does connection mean to you? Connection is a feeling. It's feeling good, feeling great, um, feeling exceptional, whatever the word you want to say is. It's feeling better each and every day in some way, to continue to grow, continue to evolve, continue to improve. Sometimes you have to take, as we talked about, some breaks, some resets in order to get yourself back on the tracks or back on that momentous journey. But the connected mindset is here to help you through that journey, to connect you to the lessons that I know have impacted me at a profound level. And I hope they've impacted you in some way. We're going to continue to grow this show. We're going to continue to grow our production. We're going to continue to bring you on better and better guests. We have some incredible guests on the list coming up. I know they're going to be huge breakthroughs for you, for the whole community. Thank you so much for tuning in. We couldn't do this without your subscribe, without your likes, without you tuning in and being able to support everything we're building. As you support us, this show grows, and that gets us better guests, gets us a better production. It makes the people around us that are supporting this, it makes their life more connected. So it's really a domino positive effect for our local community, your local community, and what we're all trying to do to make this world a better place. My name's Greg Tomchick. See you next time.